All right. Hi, everyone. We are starting today's presentation, which is what we say when we are talking about the Energy Innovation Act. Um, I am going to go through a bunch of stuff with you today. So we've got three main goals. Um, the first one is to go through our key and our supporting messages of what we say when we talk about this bill. There are going to be a lot of messages that we share today, and that's by design. That's to start introducing the flexibility that we all need when we're talking to different audiences. But we're also going to talk about how to choose what messages to use and to lead with, and we will practice a little bit at the end. I'm hoping to have some time for Q&A, so if you have questions, please add them into the Q&A box next to the chat, and we will hopefully get to some of those before the end of the session. So a little bit about me. My name is Lesley Beatty. I am CCL's Director of Marketing. Part of what the marketing team does is we help provide the messaging structure that allows all of us to communicate clearly and consistently about the policies we support, but also to give us the flexibility that we need to have productive conversations with different people. And we also produce materials and resources to help with this objective. I am from Burlingame, California, and I have been at CCL for almost 4 years in this capacity. Okay, so today, the messaging we're going to review is for the Energy Innovation Act, which is the bill that was reintroduced this year into the House of Representatives by Representative Ted Deutsch. But really, you can use these messages in support of any price on carbon or any policy that is similar to the one introduced into this bill. Before we start, I want to give us all a reminder of what we're talking about. So, you may be very familiar with the policy, or you may be less familiar. And so, we have a video that is new that shows basically how a carbon fee and dividend works. And carbon fee and dividend is the policy that the Energy Innovation Act is.
What is a carbon fee and dividend? And how does it help solve climate change? Burning fossil fuels causes carbon pollution, which traps heat and warms our planet to dangerous levels. To stabilize our climate, we need to stop carbon pollution. How? By changing the rules to the game.
I'll take this time here to make a plea for focus. So what we want to work on today is saying messaging that resonates right up front with folks. So if you take nothing else away from today's presentation, it's the importance of focused messaging. And there are a couple reasons for this. The first is resonance, right? You want to say the most important thing first.
So we are going over our benefits of the Energy Innovation Act. So these are our leading messages. They are broad and designed to resonate to the public and upward. How do we build them? The text of the bill, new studies, some light focus group type research. These are kitchen table benefits, things that resonate with people who care about climate change, but may not know a lot about climate policy. And we mentioned that all of these studies behind these numbers are found in the main talking points, which can be found on the energyinnovationact.org data sources page. This is the main high-level talking point. This policy will reduce America's carbon pollution by 50% by 2030, putting us on track to reach net zero by 2050. Why use goals? They are concrete examples that get people's attention. When we are talking about that it's fast and effective. In our focus groups, people reacted much better to specifics than to generalities. The targets are also politically relevant. 50% by 2030 was announced by President Biden on Earth Day this year, and net zero by 2050 is a global target. And you should feel confident saying these numbers and knowing that they're backed by the work of respected researchers in the field and codified in the legislative text. Resources for Future has a reputable carbon pricing calculator that estimates how different policies will reduce carbon emissions, and their work supports the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, reducing emissions by 50% below 2010 levels by 2050. And reaching net zero by 2050 is outlined in the emissions reduction targets included directly in the bill text. If these targets are not met, the rate of increase kicks up to help us get there. All right, Lesley, do you want to take over from here?
Okay, so our first main message, net zero by 2050. What Kaylee just read, there are a couple reasons that we led with this. And it's really that it resonated more with folks. So we did a little bit of focus group message testing with these messages. And what we learned from people is that they had a lot of, we had a lot of feedback that people could understand what the number, so 50% by 2030 and on track for net zero by 2050. So these are really good at getting people's attention right away. And the targets are also politically relevant, right? So President Biden, as recently as April 22nd, threw out the goal that was 50% emissions reductions by 2030. And net zero by 2050 is an established global goal. Okay, so I'm going to move on to supporting messages. And so every main talking point has a couple of other messages that go along with it. And these are really for if you find yourself getting into a conversation or if you're talking to someone who knows a lot about climate policy, you can go down and cover the rest of these talking points. They're really together as a group covering the communication that the Energy Innovation Act is fast and effective. Okay, so the first one is a price on carbon acts fast to reduce carbon pollution. We'll start seeing tangible results in as little as 9 months. The effectiveness of climate policy is heavily determined by how soon it starts. And one major benefit of a price on carbon like the Energy Innovation Act is that there are no complex rules to write, and it is comparatively fairly simple and straightforward to implement. The text in the Energy Innovation Act itself says that the policy must be the policy must be implemented 9 months after it's enacted. But really, we know that businesses will start responding right away once there is a price on carbon. And so we will start seeing results right away. The next supporting talking point, a robust economy-wide price on carbon is the single most powerful tool that we can use to reduce carbon pollution. America's carbon pollution is spread out among 5 key economic sectors. A carbon price will drive reductions in all of them, including electricity, industry, transportation, and buildings. No, we aren't saying that a carbon price is the only solution to get us to net zero by 2050. We are saying it's the single most powerful tool and that it needs to be in the package. Okay. And then the next supporting message, carbon pricing is a tried and tested tool. More than 45 countries have already put a price on carbon pollution and started seeing strong results. So when we remind people that carbon pricing has been implemented in other countries around the world, we remind them that it's politically feasible and that it can be done. Okay. Going to move on to the next talking point. So this is this is a main message. So affordable clean energy. With this policy, the government sets the direction and businesses respond in order to provide abundant, affordable, and reliable clean energy. This talking point is really about technology innovation and why it's important to solve climate change. So because this policy drives innovation across all sectors, it's going to help us get to net zero faster and more affordably. But the kitchen table benefit of innovation is really that we're going to have enough clean energy and that it will be affordable. So from our focus groups, we know that people understand green things to be more expensive than things produced with fossil fuels. They worry that a carbon tax is going to mean that everything's going to become more expensive and scarce, and that they're not going to be able to afford things that they consider part of their standard modern lifestyle. So that's why the lead main message is written the way that it is. There are supporting messages for this, and these speak a little more to government and Congress. So with this policy, the market decides what the best clean energy solutions are instead of government workers picking winners. So this concept of a level playing field for businesses is critically important to many conservatives and also to business-friendly Democrats. They believe that the solution will lead to more, better, and efficient clean. They believe that the fact that it's a level playing field, so that innovation and solutions can come from anywhere, will lead to more, better, clean energy solutions. This policy will help make America a world leader in clean energy. Okay, so this one is a good one, right? America wins. That resonates with a lot of people. But it's important particularly to members of Congress and local politicians who want the industry and good jobs that are associated with clean energy in their communities. And so we remember for local leaders, if a clean energy plant gets built in their district, it's not just those jobs, it's also the local, they have to eat in restaurants, the employees have to eat in restaurants, they need healthcare, they're going to shop at the small businesses. And so innovation is really important for local economies. Okay. And so I'm going to move on now to the next main talking point. Saves lives. So the main message is a price on carbon will improve health and save 4.5 million American lives over the next 50 years by reducing pollution Americans breathe. The headline here is that air pollution is way worse for health than we had previously understood. So there are several new studies that have come out showing just how bad air pollution is for human health. And those were used to craft this messaging. The other thing you may notice is that this talking point and all of its supporting talking points are purely focused on people. So it's really focused on people living longer and healthier lives. Politically, these talking points resonate very broadly. So both Democrats and Republicans respond well to these. You can also lead with them when you're talking to people or groups who view climate change primarily or exclusively through a human-focused lens. So maybe similar to what we heard from Our Climate this morning. Okay, supporting point. This policy will start saving lives right away because air quality clears up quickly when we stop burning fossil fuels. So we saw during COVID that air quality responds really fast when we stop burning fossil fuels. And so policies that act fast to reduce carbon pollution also act fast to reduce air pollution. That will save lives right away. The next supporting message, this policy will save lives and improve health in communities of color, which suffer the worst impact of air pollution, including increased vulnerability to COVID. This can be a strong point of connection when speaking with frontline communities and people and organizations working on environmental justice. Okay, and the last one, air pollution doesn't just kill us, it makes us sick too. This policy will prevent 3.5 million hospital visits, including 50,000 visits from children due to asthma over the next 50 years. Air pollution really ravages the human body from before we're born throughout our entire lives. And so if you are speaking to younger people, to teachers, to pediatricians, to other public health officials, this will resonate very well. And I should have mentioned, I'm sorry, I probably did mention, but since my microphone wasn't working, the data sources for all of this are available at the Energy Innovation Act.org site /data/sources. So there are all of these data points behind the talking points are available in one location for you. Okay, moving on. The last message, so puts money in your pocket. This policy is affordable for ordinary Americans because it puts money in your pocket. The money collected from the fee is given as a monthly carbon cashback payment to every American to spend with no restrictions. This talking point performed really well with our focus groups because remember, people were immediately concerned that it was going to be very expensive to move to clean energy. They are worried about themselves. They're worried about their neighbors and their families and their communities, how people are going to be able to afford this. And this talking point helps them understand both how they might do that, but also helps them feel like people have thought about them. A couple important things here is there's a perception that a wide number of Americans will not be able to afford a transition. So that's why we use the phrase ordinary Americans, because it's not just sort of the lowest income quintiles that people are concerned about, but people who they just consider everyday people. They're also worried that the money is going to be enough. Will they get enough money to help them actually cover higher costs? And so that's why we have a supporting point about that. And then they also worried that someone was going to tell them how to spend the money. And so that's why it says to every American to spend with no restrictions. So the money needs to be able to be spent on whatever they need. Okay, supporting message. This policy helps financially vulnerable low and middle income Americans the most. Okay, the source for this is our household impact study available on CCL's website, which has done an analysis of financially how people will fare under a carbon fee and dividend like the Energy Innovation Act. And what we see is that 99% of the least wealthy quintile and 95% of the least wealthy 60% of Americans will essentially break even or come out ahead. And that's because the less wealthy you are, the lower your carbon cost is likely to be. So you're likely to buy fewer things and travel less, but you receive the same payment as everyone else. So the money is given in equal payments. Okay. And then the last supporting message, under this policy, wealthier Americans will be able to manage their costs by adjusting what they buy. Carbon costs are determined by behavior, not income. Okay, this talking point addresses concerns that the policy is income redistribution, which comes up sometimes. And it emphasizes personal responsibility, which is that we really can all choose how large our carbon cost is going to be by adjusting the things that we buy and how often we travel. Okay. So those are the last of the messages. And now we're going to move into talking about how to use them. Okay. So you would never use all of those messages at once when you're talking to someone, right? Because as we said earlier, we want to pick the ones that resonate and we want to repeat ourselves. So really, we're probably going to limit ourselves to 3, maybe 4 talking points when we are introducing the concept to someone. And so, you know, the first piece of advice is the same one that Danny gave, right? Figure out what your audience needs. Can you listen first to hear what they care about, and then choose your talking points? And so you can go deep or you can go broad. Right? You can give an overview of the top level talking points, the 4 across the top, or you might want to dive deep into a topic if you know a person has a particular interest or you know specifically that something is going to resonate. And what we're going to do next is do a little bit of an exercise where we're going to talk a little bit about through some scenarios and practice picking some messages. There really aren't right or wrong answers in advance, but this is really a thought exercise for us. So, and Kaylee, I cannot see the slides at all. So consider the following scenarios. We're going to type our answers into the chat. I'm going to ask you to pick 3 messages for each of the following scenarios, and we'll just see what we get. And so the first scenario is talking with a Green New Deal supporter at a tabling event. What would you say? Okay, so I'm looking for like, what talking points did you raise? Okay, so I see a cut CO2 by 50% by 2030, net zero by 2050. Yeah. So these are great. Saves lives. Okay, so I think there's a couple things here. Like a number of people have called out that works fast and is 50% by 2030 or net zero by 2050. Those are great things to highlight. People who are focused on the Green New Deal are incredibly concerned with, are we going to make enough changes to have a difference? I'm seeing some saves lives in there, absolutely. So the people-focused talking points here would probably work really well. Saves lives in frontline communities, helps low-income Americans the most, and also money in your pocket, I think are all really good ideas. Those things would be great ones to lead with. Okay, next question. So the next one is meeting with the local small business association. What would we say there? Yeah, so there's some good ones in here. I agree. Affordable clean energy innovation can come from anywhere and across all sectors. That's a good one. So also, we know that innovation helps local economies, right? And the local small business association might be super concerned with what is the local economy going to look like. I agree that money in your pocket is also a good one for that. So, it's giving money to people in your community so that they can afford to live, and that's gonna, it's gonna help a small business, and they're concerned about having a thriving local community as well. Depending on the businesses you're working with, there may be a real tie-in with, they may be seeing dramatic effects of climate change, right? There are some industries that are really already hugely impacted, and so the works fast and is effective may be a good one to use there as well. Tried and tested is good. Yeah, I like that one too. So, we know that it works. It's been implemented other places. Okay, yeah, these are all good. And then last one, meeting with students at the local high school. Saves lives. Yeah, I was thinking that too. I mean, the health impacts on high school students are going to be huge. They would be interested in knowing that we can have positive health impacts right away. Yep, and I agree. Go broad is a good one. You might go broad. It's actually going to reduce emissions, right? So that one seems like a big one. We understand the scale of the problem, and high school students are going to be left to really address a huge scale problem. And so letting them know right away that this is a solution that meets the scale of the problem and needs to be a piece is a great idea. Yep. All right. So I can see that we are on the right track here. I think we have to end at 12:40. And I'm so sorry about my microphone because we did not really get a ton of time for Q&A. Kaylee, do we have any time left?
Our top voted question, if you could speed answer. Many groups are focused on environmental justice, and many of them will stop listening to us as soon as we use the term carbon pricing. They think carbon pricing will be burdened on the disadvantaged. How can we engage these groups quickly getting to environmental justice?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally with environmental justice groups, you have to wait a while before you introduce carbon pricing. I mean, I think you can use the topics. So to say that you do care about, saving lives, and you do recognize that people need to be able to live, and we need solutions that are workable. I think emphasizing those points of common value is good before you lead with, carbon price. Carbon pricing is, it does have complexities in terms of who hears what when they say it. So you could even say fossil fuel companies pay instead of a carbon price if you're talking to a group.
Great. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today at this session. And I encourage you to join your state breakout sessions immediately following this. So for all states except for California, head over to the booths to find yours. If you are in California, go to the schedule to pick one of the 5 California themed breakout sessions. And I will put some resources and links that Lesley mentioned in the chat now for you to click on.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Citizens Climate Lobby's training program. You can tune into more episodes anywhere podcasts are available. Inspired by what you heard today? Join Citizens Climate Lobby to advocate for bipartisan climate solutions. Go to community.citizensclimate.org to find more trainings, resources, your local chapter, national action teams, discussion forums, and more. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @CitizensClimate. We also invite all of our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiration. And together, we are creating the political will for a livable world.